Hello everybody, and thank you for joining us today for the Chapter Board Leadership 101 webinar, the pre-event for the 2014 Chapter Leadership Conference. Just as we are getting everything put together for this go-to webinar, and that we are also recording this for people to see at another time and to be able to go back to for reference, we just want to make sure that everybody can hear us. So could you please go to, on the right-hand side of your screen, you should see the My Webinar toolbar. You should see a little yellow hand button. If you can hear me, please raise your hand.
See most of them go up.
Great. Wonderful. So with that, we'll get going. You'll also see an audio box listing your audio choices. All phones are currently muted to ensure a smoother experience for all attendees. You should also see a question box. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the questions section of the My Webinars toolbar, and we will address them at the end of the presentation. If you have any general questions about this web event, please email us at education@asid.org at the conclusion of the web event. Now let's get started. So first of all, who we have here, I am Matthew DeGeeter, Director of Engagement at ASID, and alongside me I have
Rick Peluso, and I am the CFO for ASID.
In today's agenda, we are going to cover three big topics. We have ASID at a glance, chapter board procedures, and fiduciary responsibilities. So first of all, ASID at a glance. The founding of ASID. ASID was founded in 1975 by the merger of the American Institute of Interior Designers and the National Society of Interior Designers. We are established as a 501c6 professional society, and we are incorporated in the state of Delaware. To note, all ASID chapters are unincorporated state business entities.
And there's an important thing there, because I get this question all the time. We are 501c6, which is a professional business league, as the IRS calls us, not opposed to a 501c3. You can see the foundation is a C3. C3s are public charities. So yes, we are a nonprofit or not-for-profit. Those are really the same term. What we are not is a charity. So donations made to ASID, the society, are not tax deductible as charitable donations. You may deduct it as a business expense, but contributions to the foundation, C3, charity, are tax deductible. Those are two basic differences between the two.
And also to note, the third part of ASID, and so we have the society, the 501c6, the foundation, the 501c3, and also we have the benevolent fund as well. So one thing to note, ASID is the leading organization for interior designers. ASID offers networking opportunities on the national and local level through 48 chapters in the U.S. and Canada. We have a dynamic team of volunteers in leadership positions and a professional association support system. ASID is the leading organization helping the interior designers grow their business, build their network, and expand their knowledge. We also had recently at our President's Forum this past February, we were discussing our new position statement as well. And as you can see on your screen from the Rochelle Schessler-Lynn's President's Letter back in February, we highlighted a few key areas about ASID, including our strength of our membership, our cross-disciplinary aspects in our membership, how we are all coming from different backgrounds, and also really focusing on evidence-based and human-centric design to support social responsibility, well-being, and sustainability. And we also are really focusing in our programming as well as our education and everything that we do about the impact of design and how that affects us in the human experience. To note a little bit about ASID membership, we are 28,000 members strong, divided into three major categories. We have the practitioners, students, and industry partners. In our practitioners, this includes all designers and educators. There are three categories of membership in that: professional, allied, and associate. And across the U.S. and in Canada, we have 48 chapters. In our students, we have multiple student chapters at various universities and college and various universities and colleges across the U.S. And currently, we have around 200 active chapters. Additionally, within our industry partners, you can be manufacturers and reps can be a member of ASID in 3 different categories: the national level, regional, or local as well. A little bit to note about ASID and our organizational structure. At the top, we have the foundation and the board of directors. We've strategically aligned the foundation trustees and the board of directors recently, but our governance is really through our board of directors, which includes an 11-member volunteer board comprised of 10 professional and allied members and 1 industry partner member. In any given year, about half of the members of the board are new to the board and half are continuing members.
Oh, and for the term, you'll see a lot through your training, CCTF, council committees, and task forces. So,
additionally, so as we go further down our organizational chart, we have the headquarters support team led by Randy Pfizer, our Executive Vice President and CEO, and the headquarters staff. We are actually all on staff, and we are here for you, putting together programs, education, supporting the society itself, and making sure that we can all achieve our goals within interior design. We also then have the CCTFs, as Rick has mentioned, the council, committee, and task forces. We will touch on those in a minute. Then we also have our chapters with 48 chapters of those. Some chapters do have design communities where they focus on different areas because of their different geographic areas because of their size and breadth and wanting to engage with members on different levels and in different capacities. And then also feeding into our 48 professional chapters are our student chapters as well. Our contact information for your ASID headquarters support team, our address is on the screen, as well as our phone number, fax, email, and our website. You may note that we have recently moved. We are just moved still in DC. We're in a great new space, loving it every day, and really having a great time. And we're actually, I would say it's a really dynamic, collaborative working environment that's actually making us, I believe, probably a lot more efficient. And we're going to be curious to see how that affects us over the near future. Within ASID as well, we have multiple departments. Within these business units specifically, we have the government and public affairs, marketing and communications, member and industry and development, member engagement, finance, IT, and operations. And under each of those business units, you can see that there are multiple different aspects and different ways that we are supporting the society and as well you as our members and the interior design profession. Our leadership team at ASID is led by the Executive Vice President and the CEO. Our leadership team is then rounded out with our Chief Operating Officer as well as our Chief Finance Officer. Then we go down into our Vice Presidents who head up our different business units. And so as you see, we have a Vice President of Government and Public Affairs, Marketing and Communications, Member and Industry Development, Member Engagement, and in addition, we also do have our Director of Market Research. To note, all of our contact information for staff is available on asid.org, where you can find our emails as well as our phone numbers, and feel free to get in touch with us whenever you need to. Just to note a little bit more, you can see Randy Pfizer here as our Executive Vice President. Chris Tucker is the COO. He's been with us since October, and then Rick Peluso is our CFO. Just to note as well, we're calling out Ashling Thurmond here, the Executive Assistant to the CEO. She really helps a lot with scheduling and getting, keeping the ship running over here at ASID. And if you ever need to get on Randy's calendar or be specifically within time for him, it's great to contact Ashling. She's a wonderful resource for us and really helps us keep going. As we did note earlier, within our councils, committees, and task forces, we have multiple. As seen on the screen in front of you, you will commonly hear the council, committees, and task forces referred to as the CCTF. And you will note that below in all of these different CCTF that we also have additional acronyms. First of all, we have the Awards Committee, which is responsible for identifying nominees and selecting winners for the Designer of Distinction, Design for Humanity, Innovation, and Nancy Vincent McClelland Merit Awards on an annual basis. This group is also charged with evaluating recommendations submitted by chapters and/or individuals. We have the chapter support team, commonly referred to as the CST. The CST is comprised of a volunteer-driven council that works to ensure the strength, stability, and overall health of the 48 ASID chapters. All of the members of the CST are former chapter presidents, and they will be communicating with you as presidents frequently throughout your fiscal year and in your term. And they do help in the chapter leadership with strategic planning, work plans, budgets, elections, and effective governance. They are an amazing resource, and we have an amazing team put together for you, and you will be able to get to know them much better at CLC this summer in June. We also have the Fellows Committee, which reviews and approves nominations for fellowship and honorary fellowship in the Society. The Emerging Professionals Advisory Council, also referred to as the EPAC, where that group is actually pursuing strategies to engage recent graduates and new designers in Society programs, encouraging career advancement and promoting the accomplishments and contributions of the ASID emerging professionals within the interior design industry. We also then have the Ethics Committee, that reviews the merit of any ethics complaint filed against an ASID member that has surpassed legal review and has not been mutually resolved between the two parties. The main purpose of the Ethics Committee is to decide if the case involves a possible ethics violation and if the case should be sent before a disciplinary committee. The committee does not determine guilt or innocence, but merely if the ethics complaint is valid and if the evidence presented warrants a disciplinary hearing. There's also then our Legislative and Codes Advisory Council, usually referred to as the LCAC. They work across multiple aspects in government and public affairs. The LCAC determines the ASID positions on state and federal legislation, develops and implements ASID legislative strategy with headquarters staff, and works with individual chapters. The LCAC annually allocates legislative, financial aid, and staff and volunteer resources to coalitions and chapters. The LCAC also helps develop the guidelines, or develops and guides ASID participation in codes development and adoption processes, including national, regional, state-level building codes, as well as other codes and standards affecting the built environment, such as the American with Disabilities Act. Additionally, the LCAC develops and reviews specific code language as well as strategies for participation in the development of codes by specific code writing organizations. So that's definitely a busy group. Then we also have the National Examiners Committee, which is a subset of the National Board, where they really review and select candidates for president. Reviews, issues, and approves nominations for life membership. And then as well as we keep going, we have the National Nominating Committee as well.
Which is actually that was dissolved. There's a subcommittee of the board now called the Governance Committee, who has a lot of functions around maintaining, updating the governance and training on governance. And another function is they do the nominations for the next year's board. Well, we'll correct that slide.
Yeah, we'll fix that before we get this live for everybody else to access online. Then finally, and certainly not last but not least, we have the Student Advisory Council, also referred to as the SAC, where they're really bringing together the needs of the student as from the perspectives of the student, the educator, as well as the professional member, and really helping elevate their needs and within the society and their professional development. You will probably be touching multiple groups within this for the council of committees and task forces throughout your tenure and your volunteer leadership position with ASID. So it's good to get to know them and familiarize yourself with them and all of their information, as well as the background about all of the members of the CCTF is available online. So specifically, we did want to call out the chapter support team for you for the CST. Who you see in front of you listed is the incoming CST for fiscal year 2015. They will be advising you as chapter presidents and your chapters as well as you get started October 1, 2014 to September 30th, 2015. Lynn Vogeltand will be the CST chair, as well as Tony Wire will be the CST chair-elect. Then we have returning members Crystal, Suzanne, and Mary Beth, and then additionally we have Donna and Teresa joining us as new members of the CST.
And they're working on chapter assignments now. We'll have those before the CLC, which chapters they will be advising.
They're a great resource, and make sure you reach out to them and utilize them. We do want to touch on the governing documents of the society. We have the ASID bylaws and policies. These documents were adopted by the Board of Directors on behalf of the members. They are reviewed and occasionally revised to meet the changing needs of the society and its members. The bylaws and policies of the society are the highest level of governance for the society. They are its constitution, essentially, the laws that govern us. Chapters must be in compliance with the society's bylaws and policies. As you take the oath of office as a chapter board member, you agree to abide by and uphold these rules and policies. And so it is essential that you therefore read the ASID bylaws and policies and become very familiar with them. They will be used for you throughout the year and your guiding light. Also, the chapters will also be able to write their own chapter operational procedures. Those need to be completed by the chapter and sent to headquarters for approval. These are more specific for areas and issues that are unique to your chapter and areas of development that you need. And essentially for a template that you can amend or modify. This could be including like reimbursement rates for travel and things of that nature, just so that you have that down in writing and so that everybody can agree upon those. These also, the chapter operational procedures need to be completed, voted on, and approved by your board, and then sent to headquarters for approval. We also then have multiple other elements that are helpful to us. We have the ASID strategic plan that is adopted by the National Board of Directors, and that obviously feeds into your strategic plans as well. There are the society policies, the ASID legislative policy, our code of ethics and professional conduct, memos from the National Board, as well as training manuals. And you'll be receiving a lot of training material this June at CLC, including with the resources, and then later also you will be having the chapter election kit. We also wanted to touch on a few ASID member benefits. To note the ASID appellation, which is consistently ranked as the highest value for an ASID member. It is also the highest mark of professionalism in the industry, and we thank you for being members, as well as contributing to the profession itself and making it and really raising the appellation to the status that it deserves. Also, when you're a member, you are a part of a national network that includes industry partners, media partners, and consumer-focused communication to market the value of interior design. There are significant member savings that you can have through attending programs, education, publications, contract documents, and also insurance and ASID merchandise. And then also there's the My ASID profile, which is a custom public profile on the ASID website that you can utilize to showcase your portfolio and work within the designer referral service. Also, another few items in member benefits. There's automatic membership in your local chapter, including access to chapter events, learning resources, and networking opportunities. There's opportunities, multiple I should say, to engage as a leader and a mentor from the chapter to the national board. I would consider your step as part of the chapter leadership as a segue, essentially, and an opportunity to really elevate yourself into the next level of council committee task force leadership as well as national board leadership. And so definitely keep that in mind as you're going through your tenure and hopefully continuing your volunteer leadership with ASID. The last benefit we wanted to note was the legislative advocacy for the legal recognition of the profession and the development of laws favorable to the interior design industry. So for our next section is the chapter board procedures. And so we wanted to definitely touch on your responsibility as a chapter board member. Including within this, we will touch on the the board member positions, quorum and voting process, how to best schedule and run a board meeting. A lot of this information we'll be touching on lightly here, but you will have more in-depth training about each of these positions at CLC, including more of a 101 session to really get ourselves acclimated there, but also in-depth to give you the tools and resources you need in order to succeed in your time as a volunteer leader. So first we wanted to touch on the structure and terms of our volunteer leadership for the chapters. We have the president who has a one-year term, president-elect, which is a one-year term, which also feeds into the president to complete that term as well. The communications director, financial director, professional development director, membership director, director at large, the student representative to the board, typically referred to as the SRB. And then to note, one member must be an industry partner, and to have within here as well, all the board members are a voting seat on your chapter board. Just to kind of show and illustrate the format and the structure of the way that the chapters can kind of be run, this is just an example. It may not necessarily be how you organize your chapter in all of your councils, your committees, and task forces on the local level. But to really emphasize that you are a part of a team and all of you are working together to push forward your strategic plan for your chapter as well as for ASID, and that we're all in this together. And really along this circle and along this group with the president all the way through to the SRB, at the center you really have your chapter administrator, who is the constant face for your chapter and a constant contact as well. And so you are all ambassadors together working to move the profession forward as well as ASID. So just to show you, we'll touch individually on each of the chapter board responsibilities. First, what you have in front of you is the chapter president. The chapter president is the chief elected officer representing the entire membership and serving the best interests of the chapter. That's definitely the thing to keep in mind, is that you are an ambassador and you are also the one representing the face of your members and ASID in your chapter. Things to make sure is that you're definitely exercising, like recognizing that you are part of a bigger group, you are part of a larger organization, and that we are all in this together and working together for the success of this as well. You are also, if you were to put this into kind of an analogy, the chapter president is really kind of like the conductor of a symphony orchestra. You're really the person that's keeping all the parts moving together and making sure that everyone is in tune together and that you're all moving together towards the same harmonic journey. And so in the end, that you're really keeping everybody going and on task and on point and to the beat and in tune. It is important to note that the chapter president is a non-voting member except in the case of a tie for your board votes. You also are overseeing chapter directors, committees, and task forces, implementing and monitoring the approved strategic plan, and so on. It is also important to note that this will be coming up for the current seated chapter presidents, but also by September 30th, you will be reviewing your chapter administrator once a year in order to renew their contract starting October 1. And so just keep that in the back of your mind, and we'll also touch upon this more in depth at CLC. Next, we have the president-elect. If we continue the analogy for the orchestra, I would call the president-elect your first chair violinist. They're the ones that really will step up to the plate of assuming the duties of the chapter president in the absence of the president, just as the first chair violinist would assume the duties of the conductor in case of their absence as well. Things that to really note that the chapter president-elect is responsible for is that you are ensuring that the chapter has an active legislation plan. Also, you are the legislative point person. You are also within planning and executing chapter training and transitioning, as well as really chairing the strategic planning committee. You will also then be appointing your committees and task forces for the fiscal year of your own presidency, and reviewing the chapter administrator with the president once a year. We also have the financial director serving on the strategic planning committee. Where would you like to actually touch on that?
Sure, we can go over this. Just the role, the responsibility of the board financial responsibility, it's a lot of oversight. I'm not going to read all the bullets, but you really are the point person for monitoring the finances of the chapter. You have money coming in, deposits, money going out, checks. There are a lot of procedures documented in national procedures and chapter operational guidelines that you have to follow. You really do have to be careful with this. What I always say is it is not only the responsibility of this one person. Financial responsibility really does fall within the entire board. They are the mere point person. Chapters do this very differently. Some use their administrators more in the financial realm. Some use them less. Either way is okay as long as you document your procedures and follow them. And ultimately, if there's an issue with the chapter or board has questions, we look to this person for those.
Then we also have our communications director, where you're planning and executing the communication functions of the chapter. This can include the website, newsletter, public relations, and media outreach, as well as other directories. And you will also be working with other committee members responsible possibly for the chapter awards and other volunteer recognition programs. We also have the professional development director, where you will be overseeing the CEUs, roundtables and forums, conferences and events, and also any NCIDQ prep that you may be having locally. The membership director, really planning and executing the membership development plan and retention. This really does include recruitment, retention, and assessment of the needs and satisfaction surveys, and the member benefit package and benefits communications. We also have the Art at Large director, which is really focusing on an area for what your chapter needs in particular. Some examples of focuses that at-large directors have had include legislation, geographic outreach, work with industry partners, as well as design communities. And then also the student representative to the board, where they're maintaining communication with the student chapter presidents, the chapter president, the student affairs committee chairs, as faculty advisors, and student chapter liaisons. The SRB is maintaining and updating the contact information for student chapter officer rosters and assists in coordinating chapter-sponsored student programs. This is really key, especially keeping the SRB involved, as well as we are in May, and many students have graduated, and so we're really wanting to make sure that we're getting our student members to go from student to allied. We have a lot of great benefits, and we're hoping that we can all work together to make sure that we can keep everybody in the ASID family. Just wanted to touch on one specific committee for your chapter, which is the Emerging Professional Affairs Committee Chair. This person does not have a voting seat on the board, but is a position required on the chapter level. This chair does report to the membership director, and I would really consider this person to be kind of like your maybe past SRB. It could be a past student chapter leader, but really somebody who would be that you consider a rising star, and you can really then develop into having a chapter board position and really taking a leadership point in your chapter as well. Just a little bit more information on the Emerging Professional Affairs Committee Chair, attending ASID leadership training, promoting national emerging professional programs such as GoPro in New York, that will be this year in September. Also really helping us convert our student members to advancing to allied members, as well as multiple other events like attending the Student Career Day. We will, just to show you on the slide for filling vacancies on your board, we will be touching this more in depth at CLC this year. So for instance, if your chapter president, if you have a vacancy, the president-elect does become the chapter president. Your president-elect, if you have a vacancy there, a qualified ASID member would be approved by the board. Also, there with director vacancies, it is also to note that if not available, then a qualified member would be approved by the chapter board for other vacancies. And you would be working with your CST, chapter support team, to have your vacancy filled, which is to be filled within 45 days unless approval is obtained.
And just a note here, it's very important when you have vacancies to fill those seats quickly. We had a situation where chapters kind of lingered. Oh, we're down one. Oh, then we're down two. And then look at that, we've lost quorum. And then once you lose quorum, legally you can't vote, and that causes all sorts of problems. So don't let the vacancy sit. As soon as you know there's one, move quickly, get somebody in that seat, and move forward.
We wanted to touch also on the quorum and voting procedures. A quorum for your chapter board includes 5 voting members. It is good to note that a meeting can still take place without a quorum. However, a motion can be made at the next meeting where a quorum is present to ratify the business from the previous meeting. Yes, you can conduct business meetings via conference call and or Skype if all board members can hear each other, but there are specific items that you should avoid where you need to actually see and hear each other to vote on those, including amending chapter policies and guidelines, as well as amending your strategic plan, work plan, and your annual budget. We also wanted to touch on running successful board meetings. Please make sure that you have your date, time, and place confirmed and communicated well in advance so that everybody has the appropriate time to schedule and attend. The president calls the meeting to order, and once everybody is there, you take attendance, have roll call, and at the beginning there's the approval of the minutes from the last meeting, which does require a vote. Also within a successful board meeting, the agenda itself, where we have reports from the officers, directors, and committees. Each board member should be turning in their reports prior to the board meeting itself so that it can be a part of the agenda. And so everybody has also that appropriate amount of time to review the information to have a more successful discussion at the time that can then, if need to, turn into a vote. You will also then include on your agenda unfinished business from a previous meeting, as well as new business, and then at the end you would need a motion for adjournment.
Yep. And keep in mind, you are members of a business board here, so it is somewhat serious thing. So you don't want to go to a meeting and say, oh, what do you want to talk about? Do your work before, send out your reports, send out an agenda for the president so the business can be conducted. And, really make sure that, you read that material before coming to the table so you're prepared. And you don't have to read every report at the table. It should be a part of the board book, and then you can move through the business rather quickly.
And to really touch on that with what Rick brought up about moving quickly, because you want to make these board meetings efficient. Everybody is a volunteer, and we want to be conscious of everyone's time that they are putting into this. And that we all have jobs in our own businesses and such that we also need to attend to, and so the more efficient that you can be together as a board and more effective, that will just help you move along much faster. So just wanted to touch also on Robert's Rules of Order. The reason that we utilize this is because it keeps our meetings orderly, keeps us on time and on topic. It allows all members to participate equally and allows the president to be in control. Even the National Board of Directors utilizes the Robert's Rules of Order in order to keep themselves on task. Just for the basics, the president is the one who is leading the charge in the Robert's Rule during the meeting. They're recognizing each person before they speak. The reason for this is because you're wanting to allow everyone the opportunity to give their perspective and have their point of view, and make sure that everybody can equally contribute before everybody speaks twice. It's also wanting to make sure that you're keeping your topic on time and on task, and so that you're not going off into multiple different directions, and that you're able to really address the issue at hand. These Robert's Rules of Order do require motions for decision, and that's in order to that we have an agreement on all of the decisions, that there's a written record of all the decisions as well, and it allows everyone to have an equal participation and keeps discussion on topic. So just a brief overview on actually making a motion. The speaker is recognized by the president. The motion is made by saying I move instead of saying I make a motion. So it's I move to. A member may explain why the motion is being introduced. Keep in mind that this should be brief and not turn into a lengthy discussion at this point. You're just really introducing the motion. The motion then needs to be seconded. So another board member would then say I second the motion. And then from that point, the president would make the note that a motion has been made and seconded, and that the motion is now open for discussion. It's at this point that we have the discussion at the board table. And so it's after the motion is made, not before, is when we have the discussion. And just to reemphasize that we want to keep this on time and on topic. And after everybody has the opportunity to speak, that is when the president can call for a vote. Either it can be, for example, by saying, are you ready to vote? Sometimes there's typically no answer. If it's a little slow to call for a vote, there could be the option for a member may say question. Just generally to keep in mind, if the discussion stops or kind of stalls and everybody's had that opportunity, the president should be calling for a vote. President would then repeats the motion and says, all in favor say aye, all opposed no, and from there you're announcing the outcome. So to note, in case of a tie, the president may vote to break that tie, but it is also really important to note that if in the result of a tie, the vote loses. Also within amendments, these again also have to be recognized by the president during discussion of the motion in such a way of I move to amend the motion by, and so you're either inserting words, striking out words, or striking out and inserting words, and so you're really just adjusting the language itself. You must also then second that as well. There's also then the opportunity for further discussion and then voting on the amendment. And then from that, a voting on the motion with the amendment if the amendment passes. It can be a little confusing at first, but typically after your first board meeting and utilizing the resources that you have within your fellow board members who have already been through that for their first year in their term, it's pretty quick to catch up on and actually can be a very effective process. Things to know for basics of maybe later, board meetings should not turn into committee work. You're really there to keep things on task and on point and in accordance with your strategic plan so you can keep moving forward. That's also emphasizes the need to delegate within your teams of your council committee and committees on within your chapter. If an item cannot be disposed of immediately, you may need to make the decision in order to table a motion or also postpone, which does require a motion. And the purpose of this is so you can either do more research, take more time to really understand if there needs to be committee work done as well of, developing the information in the background so everybody has that opportunity. Also, we wanted to touch on the committee reports. The time at the board meeting is not the time to really have a debate or a lengthy discussion about the committee reports. This is also a thing to note within the reports that are given. There could be recommendations from the committee, and they should be in the form of a motion. And that would then have to be brought to the table by the board member as well. This is also a time where you want to really check your time when you are in your board meeting, because there's the opportunity as you get into these committees and perspectives and these reports that you could really do a deep dive into some of the information. And it would be our recommendation to keep your board meetings succinct and on point and on task, and then probably also revisit the committee reports as well one-on-one. Did also want to touch on open versus closed meetings. Open meetings is where everyone is allowed to attend. Only board members are allowed to vote. This is always true. Guests should not be sitting at the board table itself and should also be respectful and only speak when given permission by the board. And so this could be for an expert that you brought to the table as well as a committee report or a committee chair. A closed board meeting is closed to everyone except for the board members and to those and to those that the board may have asked to stay, such as your administrator or secretary, but sometimes not. And you're really utilizing this opportunity for a closed board meeting to, discuss personality conflicts, your chapter administrator's contract, and also when you feel that, you have a sensitive subject. And so use it with caution, but also recognize that that opportunity is available to you. Also, then it's important to take effective minutes within your at the end of your board meeting. It should record what was done, not everything that was said, and so that you're really seeing the results in the meeting itself. Keep in mind, just a few other bullet points of what could be within those meetings. Make sure they include date, place, attendees, who presided, name of the person who introduced a motion, the motion itself, the vote or the outcome, and then a brief summary of the reports. And then also note the adjournment of the meeting itself. And these minutes will be taken with you into the next board meeting where you will be approving those minutes before you go into the items of your next board meeting. Helpful reminders just to keep To keep you on task, always remember to stick to your agenda. Use a timer if necessary. Make sure that everyone has the opportunity to speak before someone else speaks again. And you're really there working as a team. And just keep in mind that, as a business unit itself of your chapter, that, be professional, thoughtful, and efficient.
Fiduciary responsibilities. So really, if anything you take away your time on a board, this board or any other, this is really the most important thing. And it really is the heart. I am very proud to say ASID has a great reputation for training on fiduciary responsibilities and very good reputation of the boards acting with fiduciary responsibilities going forward. So your chapter responsibilities. One, you're going to hear this a lot. Bylaws and policies, the biggest thing there is always to read them. You act with fiduciaries. That really comes down to two things: duty of care and duty of loyalty. I'm going to stress this over and over. Duty of care means you treat the chapter like it's your very own business, not like something you're just volunteering for. This is just the way you would run your own business. You have that same standard of care for it. Duty of loyalty means while you are serving on the board, your loyalties to the chapter do come first. So when there are conflicts, when there are certain other opportunities may arise and things, you need to have your loyalties to the chapter first in your mind. And then you have a duty of obedience, which means when the board makes decisions, you follow them. You can't go rogue. You can't go off, do your own thing. When boards make decisions, they're announced. It's with one voice. You can't say, yes, the board voted for that, but, me and Matt, we were really against it. It's one voice. This is what the board decided, and you move forward. You're also going to have certain responsibilities around finance, ethics, code of conduct, whistleblower, privacy. We're going to get into all this as we go forward. Your commitment to a board member, really is strong. Board should not be taken lightly. Commitment to a board member is to have a promise to uphold the bylaws and policies, both from the chapter and from the national. That promise starts with one very important step, that you actually take the time to read them. It is amazing. Every year I say it over and over and over again, and the majority of you will not take that time to read them. It is very hard to execute policy and bylaw that you have not read. I know they're long, I know they're tedious, but you have to do it. So you have fiduciary responsibility. This started with the day you agreed to be on a slate and ultimately be on the board of directors. So let's talk about what that means. You're going to govern the chapter. Chapter, we've gone over some of this. It's governed with bylaws. It's governed with policies. The national organization really does set those. Those two documents are controlled by your national board. They're the same for all your chapters. Where you have control is under these operational guidelines. That is where you document how you execute the bylaws and policies of the society and your chapter. Governance, board of directors. It's the governing body for your chapter. You hear us talk a lot about governance. One of the things we strive for as an organization is really effective training on how to be good governors. Truth be told, chapter boards operate much more like an operational board. They are about execution. They're about getting programming on the ground. They're about delivering services to the membership. The national board is a little different. They are much more about strategic vision and thinking and moving us in a new direction and where should this profession go. They have the luxury of having a national staff who handles the operational implementations for them as a board. So you are a little different as entities. Well, as we move you through training, this webinar, CLCs, President's Forums, we do try to move you from your role as an operational board into that strategic level So we are eventually training our next group of national board members that have that strategic thinking built into them. So we do, there's a program going on here that we try to make sure you're a part of. I'm also hurrying to get us back on the time schedule. ASID chapter governance, you know, your roles are basic. You're going to implement national policy. So national board has meetings quarterly. They send down policies. They debate them. They put them out there. You know, at that point, the chapter really has to implement them on their side. Happens a lot around legislation, or at least did a few years ago when legislation was really combative. Not all of our members agreed 100% with our legislative policy, but as leaders of the organization, we need you to implement when that policy comes in. Doesn't mean you agree with it. There are processes. You can send up a formal, you know, hey, we disagree, and did you consider this note to national? Those things are taken by the board. They're taken very serious. They're reviewed by the board. They're part of the debate. They actually do appreciate the input, and we get them quite often. But, you know, until a policy is changed, you execute it. You have a role to adopt and implement a budget. Sorry, go back. The budget is a very important working document. It's not something you worked on last summer and you forget about. You really should be comparing how you're doing to the budget and seeing how you're going. It can change. It can be amended. Not a problem, but it should be a part of the conversations. Financial oversight. This is really something, you know, it's kind of actually something boards are taking very seriously right now, which I really appreciate. You know, back, 5-10 years ago when we were rolling, a lot of chapters were sort of careless on the financial oversight because they were making a lot of money, and every time they looked at a statement, they had a lot more. When times are tough, boards, not just ASID, but boards in general, tend to look at it more because they're watching their nickel. So we are in that mode, and we are going through these. Ensure the chapter has proper resources. These are not just financial resources. These are your staffing of your administrator. It's making sure your website's up to date, making sure your policies and your training, that you're asking these questions. That's your job as a board, to make sure that these resources are there and you know where to get them. I get a lot of calls, as does Matt and other staff, saying, would be nice if ASID provided A, B, and C. Many times our response is, well, here's A, B, and C, and it's been on our website for years. So you got to get through that. But we're here to guide you through it and help. There is a lot. And then ensure compliance. There's a lot of compliance issues out there on both national policies and law and regulations. They're changing all the time, but that is part of your job now, is to ensure compliance. The board as a whole is not responsible for day-to-day, very true. But like I said, you are more of the operational side, so you are managing your administrator, you're managing your committees. You are much closer to those day-to-day functions in your role as this board as you will be as you move up through the ranks of society and get there. Delegation only to the much as you have expressed power. Yes, you need to delegate responsibilities. Committee structure is so important to us. It builds a pipeline of volunteers. It's actually a better way to get work done. It also helps develop the next group of chapter board leaders so they can move in and take your role in a year or two. Very important. But there are certain responsibilities you can never delegate. Your financial responsibilities. The fiduciaries of that board. You need to know what they're doing. Signing of contracts is a big one on the chapter level. I hear way too often that, the committee chair signed that contract. We never saw it as a board. You don't have that luxury. That is a board. Only the chapter's seated president signs the contracts. There's a review process. There's a lot of these things. We get into this a lot more at the CLC. This is the scary stuff, but you need to have that sort of underlying authority. And there are ultimately legally, the regulators, states and counties and federal, will not let you delegate certain responsibilities to your committees, your councils, your staff, and you have to take those on. You have to know what they are and make sure they're at. There's a lot, but the biggest advice I'll give you is if you are unsure if a if a committee is doing things that make you uncomfortable, if a fellow board member is doing things that make you uncomfortable, don't sit back on it, act. That means you may want to have a conversation with your CST, you may want to have a conversation with national staff, you may want to have a conversation with other board members to say, hey, does this seem right to you? Am I just misreading it? But even after those conversations, if you don't feel comfortable, keep pressing, get the information you want to be comfortable, and then we can move forward and work through the issues. It's much better to be transparent on these things. If a relationship imposed by law where someone is voluntarily agreed to act in a specific capacity as a caretaker, this is the legal definition. So as you said, I want to be on this board, you have said, I agree to take on these responsibilities. Key words here: good faith, honesty, integrity, loyalty, undivided service. These are all things you need to take seriously in there. I've heard more than one occasion a chapter president call me and say, well, I'm not really the president. They needed somebody to fill the seat, so I said, you can put my name on the slate, but I don't want to do anything. I'm just going to let the rest of the board handle this. And I have said consistently, you need to resign because you have put a lot of legal faith in 7 other people that are putting your name on something, and you will be held responsible for their actions. If you don't want that, don't sign up for the job. Now, the good news is if you act as a reasonable person with these fairly simple qualities that the law has laid out, you aren't going to have a problem. If you act in good faith, with honesty and integrity, even if you make bad decisions, you're not going to be personally liable. But if you act without good faith or honesty or integrity, you will be. So it's a pretty easy standard to get by, but it is amazing how often in life, not just ASID life, but actual life, people fail on these things, and you need to keep up with them. Okay, the obligation is first and foremost to our members. That is something you cannot waver on. The other thing I have consistently heard is people say, well, I went to this meeting, but I wasn't wearing my ASID hat, so I voted or did A, B, and C. And it's in direct conflict to ASID policy and board best interest and member best interest. I can tell you, this. There aren't 2 of you in the world. There's only 1 of you sitting on the board. You can't divide yourself. You can't flip hats on and off. There is only 1 person. So you are on the board of directors. You are on the board of directors from the day you take office, really from the time you get on the slate, to the time you leave office. And you can't say, on Tuesdays, not a board member, Wednesdays, I'm back. That's the role, it's your responsibility. You have to act in that all the time.
One thing to add to that, or just to kind of put in alignment, is the thought process that it's just like how you represent your own firm or company, that you are constantly, no matter where you are, especially in today's day and age with social media and everybody in such a public eye so many times, is that you're always representing your company, you're always representing your firm, and especially when you are a volunteer leader for ASID, you're also representing us.
Great transition to this slide. Duty of care, we touched on this before. It really, at the end of the day, and here's the legal definition, it's you are thinking of your board just like you would your very own personal business. And it is a place you can't go and tweet, wow, why is ASID supporting this bill? I don't understand it. I don't understand why ASID does so little for, this category of member. That you're on the board. That's all going to be looked at as why are your board members saying this about the organization? Got to act with that duty of care at all times. It's pretty simple to do. Unfortunately, it's also very simple to forget all the way through. Duty of loyalty, kind of get touched on the next one too. Your obligation is to the chapter at this point. That is your first. I know Where sometimes I see conflicts really is around the coalitions. And, maybe you sit on the coalition board and the chapter board at the same time. That's okay. It can be done. But you have to remember you're acting in interest of your chapter of all times. And when there are conflicts, we're going to talk about that, there's ways to remove yourself from those conflicts. But you can't be sitting on your legislative board saying, well, I think the chapter should pay 3 times as much dues to the state legislative coalition, and then your chapter board sitting there going, no way we could afford that. There's only one of you. You have to act in the best interest of both. Obedience, we talked about. I think I covered this pretty wholeheartedly. Policies come down, you follow them. And once things are said and decided, you don't continue to debate as a board member outside the board table. Debate all you want at the board table. It's good, it's healthy, it should be debated, should be questioned. But when you're out with the membership, with the public, debate's over, you're obeying what has been decided. All board members must be aware that what is happening being uniform board members, it is not a defense. It is critical to attend all board meetings and review all minutes. I really want to put that. You can't say, well, I wasn't at that meeting, I wasn't there. You may miss a meeting. We understand that. That's what we're getting at. But if you're available, you can't just say, I'm a little tired tonight, not going to make it. If there really is a conflict in life, there's, we still have quorum, we can do business, but you're a part of that. You really haven't trusted the other board members and their judgment. You could have given them your notes, your thoughts, but they get to vote with their best interest. And I think this is covered later, but there is no proxy voting. You can't say, Matt, go to the board meeting and vote no for me. Some organizations that is allowed. You may sit on another board where that is practice, but in the ASID bylaws, there is no proxy voting. I think we talked about this. Questions when you're not comfortable, absolutely. It's both your right and responsibility to do so. You shouldn't just say, I don't understand, but sure. I have unfortunately heard that a lot. Well, I voted for it, but I don't know. Matt thought it was a good idea. And I didn't understand it, so I just said yes. You can't really do that. You've put a lot of trust then in the Matt you've given your judgment and put yourself on the line to him. Ask the questions. And be professional at all times. Remember, somebody at the board table can disagree with you. They can have a completely different point of view on an issue. They can vote no when you want a yes. This happens on the national board quite a bit. Some of the proudest moments I've had is I've seen really, really raging debates on issues and policy issues where board members that could not have seen things more opposite, gone on for a long, long time, and 20 minutes after the board meeting, the 2 board members are sitting at the bar having a drink and socializing, and that's just business. They didn't take it personally. They understood. Hey, they were passionate, got the feelings, but never was it personal on their point of view. And that's what you have to have as you're operating is remember, you walk away from that board table, that was business. You can have a personal relationship, that's great. See things differently at the board table or vice versa. I've seen board members who can't stand the sight of each other, really just personally don't like each other, but they come to meetings, they sit down, they get the business done, they vote together when it's time to vote together, they vote opposed when it's not, and that doesn't affect their personal relationship at all. That's part of being professional all the way through. Speak with one voice. You heard this, board votes. That's what comes out. It's the board decided this. Board decided not to do this. It's not, hey, we wanted to, but the president didn't. And that's actually a related topic. The president doesn't decide anything. The president leads and guides the board and does so, but it does not decide anything. The board itself decides, and that who is accountable. I have seen many times here that boards have come to me and said, well, the president just runs the meeting and they bully us and she tells us what to do and we just vote and nobody has a say. And I say, well, whoa. What do you mean she bullies you? And they're like, well, she bullies us in the votes. I'm like, you get the vote. You're an adult. You're an intelligent adult. You're a reasonable person. Nobody can make you vote any other way than the way you wanted to vote. And the president may be unpleasant about it, but that is your decision as a board member. And I don't want to hear you got bullied. You know, you're over 18, you're on the board, you make your decisions. And if you voted for it, even if you did so with angst, you voted for it, that's the decision, and we all live with it.
It's just like working in a project team. With all the different and complex projects that we are all a part of as designers, we're really looking into this. It's that you're also in a team of the chapter board, and so working together, you may not always see eye to eye, but it's also when you need to have that consensus and that and the vote that everybody has their opinion and their right to their opinion, but also the ability and the opportunity to learn and grow from each other and essentially become bigger than your own domain and step out of a comfort zone and try to think of yourself and the perspectives of everybody else who is involved.
Yep. And this last bullet point is pretty important. Not keeping your obligations is really going to hurt the group. And there are things that happen in life where you're not going to be able to keep your board obligations. We start the year with 48 chapters and 8 board members each. A lot of them are going to fall off. We lose, on average, I think about 20 board members nationally across all 48 chapters, a year. And it's not because they're bad board members usually. It's because, they got promoted, they got demoted, they got moved, they, have a child, got married, got divorced, life gets in the way. And that's okay. And your life may change. You took the job, you were all in, and you're 3 months, 4 months, 5 months later, your life is in a very different place. All of a sudden, keeping up with your board responsibilities is not happening. You're not executing at the level you want to. It is okay to step back and go to your other board members and say, you know what, I can't do it right now. I just can't keep these obligations up. It's also okay for board members to go to a board member and say, you know what, we understand. You're a good person, you're trying, but it's not happening. You're not meeting up with what you need to. And you can deal with that issue. And a lot of times I've seen where that board member steps away, maybe takes a year or 2 years off, then comes back and is better than ever because their life is back to a good place where they can volunteer and put the proper amount of time in. Where it spins down is where a board member allows themselves and others allow them to just not meet the obligations. And then there's a problem. And then everybody's got to deal with it. It really does bring everybody out. So if you need help, ask for it. If you need to move on in life, that's okay. We can deal with that. If you need somebody else, that's fine. But be honest, and we can get through it. We touched on this. All board members are responsible for the finances, not just the finance director. They're just a point person. But that report should be at every meeting, gone over, so we know where we are. Including the budget in every meeting is always helpful. Strategic plan and budgeting should be reviewed and amended. This is another thing. Your strategic plan was not something I understand, but I talk to chapter leaders all the time about this time of the year. I said, how's your strategic plan going? They go, you know what, we should look at that because we understand. It's a long document. It's probably overambitious, which is okay. Sometimes a lot of things come up, but a good way to make sure it's being executed is every board meeting, make sure everybody brings it. You read it before every board meeting so you know what's going on. As staff, I try to tell staff, review it once a month, pull it out of the drawer, read it. You're probably actually going through it pretty well, but it is nice to remind yourself, and then there's always one or two things like, oh yeah, we should be doing that. That's coming up. Let's get it done. And that does help. So financial directors should be on the board. Tax returns and filings, it's a big one. Don't let those slip. We try to send reminders. You have to work with a professional. That helps because they'll remind you every year. And that's something. Yep. A couple of these subsidiary policies, I call them. There are a whole slew of them. We're going to touch on them here. We're going at depth in a month in LA. But a few years ago, unfortunately, the country was invoked in a number of scandals around corporate America. You heard about Enrons and WorldComs and They were out there, and they were very real. But unfortunately, they were not siloed to corporate America. Nonprofits actually got involved or exposed to about the same level of scandal. Some big ones went down, a lot of small ones. So governments got their ears up, and they put forward a whole slew of regulations that we have to deal with. And I am very proud to say we are dealing with them appropriately. Once again, another updated slide. We don't have an executive director anymore. So we got to replace our EVP. That will probably be 20 years before we get all those out of the society. But so the first one is a whistleblower. This you heard about a lot around Enron, the whistleblowers. We are required, well, we're not required to, but Sarbanes-Oxley Act, the SOX Act, would say it highly recommended we have a whistleblower policy in place requiring. But we, as good stewards, go ahead and wrote one. We put it in place. We put it in place for not only the society, but all 48 of our chapters. Every year on your 990 tax return, you're asked a question, do you have a whistleblower policy? The answer is yes, you do have a whistleblower policy. It is distributed to you at CLC. We will review it in detail then. Basically, it outlines if you see malfeasance within the organization, here's the paths you can go to resolve them and report them, and there will not be backlash to you personally for doing so, as long as you did so with reasonable evidence and as a reasonable person. If you start, accusing everybody of everything, you're going to have issues, but that's true in life. Not going to run through the whole thing here. They outline the whole thing. Privacy policy. This is another one for you to review. They'll be distributed at CLC, some depth. Organizations got into a lot of trouble in the last decade or so around disclosure of private information that they are entitled to. As chapter leaders, you will get private information about your membership. It is not just their Social Security. You probably don't get this, Social Security numbers. But you get other things. Things as simple as their address is deemed to be private information about somebody. Their phone numbers is private information. Their email address is a private information. And you have to have standards of how we distribute these to the public. That's why we don't send out people's email address and email addresses to IPs who want to solicit them for business. There's a policy around how that can be done, so the IP never sees that list, but they can solicit to it. It's outlined in the policy we'll be covering at CLC, but it is very real. And organizations, nonprofits can be fined up to $10,000 per occurrence. And by occurrence, they've actually defined that. If you have a list of 1,000 people on it that should not have been distributed, and they got distributed, each person on that list is an occurrence. So the fines can mount very steep very quickly. Now, government has not really thrown the book at anybody yet. They've wrote a very high number in regulation. Fines have been smaller, especially for first-time offenders. But they're out there, and they're real, and people have been fined. You can run through the privacy, but we'll go through this more at CLC. This is the whole policy. I think we've copied the slide. Conflict of interest. This one I'm going to spend a little bit more time on. You, as a board member, may come up to conflicts of interest in your role. Like I said, you could be sitting on your legislative committee or your coalition at the same time, and there could be a conflict around there. Your personal business may have a conflict in it, and you may have a problem around that. There are times. The biggest thing I could tell you is disclose. Disclose to your fellow board members and say, hey, this thing we're pursuing over here, I've actually got an interest in it through this channel, whether it's personal, business, other organization. Here's where my standing is within those two organizations. And then the other board members get to decide how they want you to proceed. They may look at you and say, you know what, we're comfortable, not a problem. They may say, you know what, during this we want your input and insights, but we don't want your voting on it. Or they may even say, you know what, we don't want you in the room when we discuss it. This is, we'll discuss it independently of you and vote independently of you. Or they may say, wow, this is such a conflict, you need to remove yourself from one or more of the situations. That's going to be up to them. But by disclosing that, you have now put it on the table. So 2 years from now, they can't come back and go, boy, that was going on. You had a foot in both camps, and boy, we're uncomfortable now. You disclose now up front. Non-public information, this is part of it. You may be entitled to non-public information. We'll talk a little bit more if this CLC gets complicated, but disclosure is the key here on conflict of interest opportunities. We'll get the details there while we run through these. Yep, it's up there. Examples and stories. You know what? I'm going to save these to the conference. I got a million of them, and you all call me. Some of them are amusing, some of them are scary, but they're real.
But it's also good to note that Rick is an amazing resource for you. He has the background and perspective on all of this information, and he's very willing to provide the perspective and the guidance for you as well and your chapter boards to make sure that we're all doing everything that we need to be doing and keeping in line as we move forward. Just wanted to note about our 2014 Chapter Leadership Conference itself. Just an overview of schedule and the overview of the conference and the schedule. It starts on Thursday, June 19th and goes through Saturday, June 21st. We have a lot of fun, a lot of great information planned for you, including through getting to know the presence with the chapter chats with your CST. There's going to be some basic training opportunities. We're really excited about a keynote that we have coming in, as well as an opening reception. There's also a panel presentation for framing ASID 2.0 and the direction of the society, as well as further and in-depth training for you and your chapter board and the rest of your chapter board members. What we've really done is we've taken the feedback from last year that we had, and we're really focusing on improving the experience of CLC this year, and we're really excited for the content and what we will be providing, and we're hoping that you're going to find that to be a very high-level and valuable experience with ASID this year. Also on Saturday, we have a little bit of a different format with a few workshops. We will then also still be having the awards luncheon as well as the State of the Society. And always to remember, Saturday evening we have Celebration, the ASID Awards Gala. It is this year at Paramount Pictures Studios in LA, and you can find more information on it at www.asid.org/celebration. And that actually concludes our webinar itself. We can look into a few questions to see if there's anything in specific that we would like to address for you.
And we know we got some comments that we may have been echoing from time to time. We apologize. We'll watch this together later, and if it's bad, we will re-record the audio and post the non-echoing version to the website as well.
We're just going to look into a few of the questions real quick to see if we can address a few of them right now.
Can you show the slide with the addresses and phone numbers again?
Sure thing.
Yep, and that's also on the website. I believe now every staff member's email is directly on the website. So if not, it's a pretty easy scheme. It's first letter of our first name, then last name at asid.org. So we've all got the same email. Feel free to send them. Every member of staff is available. We do try to answer our emails. Try to, as leadership, direct them to the appropriate staff member. So, if you had a member person saying, hey, they thought they paid but not sure, probably best to go to customer service and not to Randy. You know, if you have a policy question, you know, education question, get the education, financing, send it to me, you know, all the way through. You know, it's, you know, that's the way we try to move through these things.
Just wanted to note, I see a question if there's a procedure on how to vote, if it's by hand or written. When you take a vote, it's usually all those in favor say aye or yay, and then opposed no. If it's confusing about who has been yes or no, then you can usually ask for raising of hands for yes and no for clarification.
We don't have any secret ballot procedures. Generally, boards vote. It's not, you know, it's not like voting in a political election where your vote is secret. Board votes are typically disclosed to the other board members. So not to your membership, but to the other members. If there is a situation where you have a gallery, you know, guests at the table, and you know you're voting on something controversial, so you don't want them to know what the split is, that's when you close the meeting, you have them leave the room, and you do raise hands.
Just to note another question, we will be actually packaging the slides and the presentation to have the full webinar available online, but I'm sure we can also get the PDF of these slides available to you as well, so you can review those before you come to CLC. Then we also have...
Who's the best membership contact? Depends. That's a very broad area of membership. If it is a question about, you know, a member's dues, you know, did this person advance, they're having an error, you can send it through the customer service team. If it's a strategy question around recruitment, Chris Tucker, you know, he's the COO. He's currently manning that position. If there are, you know, policy questions on membership, I'll be free to take them. So that's a broad area. So depending on where you are, you can direct it to different staff.
Yep. And then also for at CLC, you will be having specific tutorials on your individual positions of the board. You'll be broken out actually among the other board positions that are there from other chapters. So for example, President and President-elect will actually be together. Finance directors will be together, and you will have multiple sessions on your for training this year at CLC.
I see a question on the website around the designer profile. Yep, we recognize we have a problem. We just launched with a fix to that problem, and that's unfortunately, the problem is very deep, and the staff members who were responsible for that are no longer with the organization large part because of what they created. We have just contracted services with a company who specializes in association website integrations. Those companies do exist, and they are very good. The kickoff was yesterday, and we are projecting the first fix. There's a number of them that will be put on, will happen shortly after the CLC. I don't want to give a specific date because obviously staff resources are going towards CLC right now, but there will be fixes coming. I'm very happy with the company we found. They know what they're doing. So we do see a problem there. Which one are you looking at?
I'm putting up the slide for the graphic of the board members again, kind of the chapter admin as the center. Just to re-emphasize, the purpose of the graphic is to show that, you know, you're all a team and everybody in the delegation of responsibilities throughout from your chapter board, and as that kind of reaches further and further out into the community, and so you can have the largest impact possible with your chapter board.
I see a question there on bylaws and who do you address questions to. Angelo Ford on staff can take them, or, you know, I'm very happy to. I'm very deep into the ASID bylaws. I will tell you the National Board is undergoing a process of total bylaw governance document review. This is something nonprofits typically do every 2 to 3 years, so we're due. It's best practice, and one of the goals is a simplification of our governing documents. They have gotten very, very long and unwieldy over time. And to be honest, I think ASID had a habit of taking things that probably belonged in operations and putting them into policy, things that probably belonged in policy and writing them into bylaw. And that's part of the reason there's such length, and it's very hard to find information. It also leads to conflicts between the two documents. So that is all being cleaned up. We're working with some consultants who are experts on those in doing this. This is very typical for nonprofits. Like I said, best practices every around 3 years to go through and clean these up and simplify everything again. So they're working on that now. That will be happening through the summer. We'll hit the next fiscal year with simplified governing documents that will be distributed, of course. Oops, get it back out. Any other questions we can help you with?
I think we've addressed all the questions that everybody's asked so far.
I don't know the answer to that. Yeah, I'm just reviewing all the notes. Thank you so much for submitting. We do see a few still on the audio. Like I said, we'll do a playback. If we need to, we'll re-record it and put it back out there.
We can do that as well.
Yeah.
Happy to do so. We just want to make sure everybody gets the information they need. Please feel free to reach out to us directly if you would like. We're looking forward to seeing everybody at CLC and then hopefully at Celebration as well. And also as you enjoy Dwell on Design and the many education opportunities that ASID has partnered with and is producing there as well. And so we hope everyone has a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.